Hey guys, happy Saturday. We are back for another Saturday edition of Puck Time. Of course, you already know the Puck Time co-hosts. I am Andrew. I've got Carmine with me. We saw the great response you guys gave us last Saturday to us doing a Saturday edition. We had to come back for another episode here, another edition, I should say. Carm, 3 games. We got some games to break down, plus a great promo code as well. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I ran after today's show. Just had a ton of stuff to get done, and then get back and start capping the Saturday card. Because Andrew, it's a huge Saturday card, and then there's only like a couple games on Sunday, and then it's the All-Star break. So there might be, I think, a couple sporadic games along the way next week, but for the most part, most teams are on a 6 to 8 day break. So that's something that we'll have to talk about next week on Puck Time, and looking at teams off of breaks of more than 4 or 5 days. I'll run a bunch of numbers. I'll put a chart together and we'll toss it up on the screen so you guys can have a little bit of statistical info to help you make some bets when these teams all come back from that All-Star break.
And some teams, like to end the first half on a good note, right? And some teams, probably don't even want the All-Star break to be here. They're playing so well. But we're going to talk about the Leafs, Jets, Islanders, and Panthers, and the Devils taking on the Lightning. We'll start things off with what is the second part of a home-and-home set here with the Leafs visiting the Jets in Winnipeg after what was an exciting but boring game all at the same time. 1-0 overtime finish in Toronto between these two teams, Carm. We're seeing minus 130, 135 for the Jets at home, and the total at 6.5, despite the first meeting having just one goal combined. What are your thoughts on that matchup in Winnipeg?
Right, this one surprises me for the total, and I get it. Anytime a game involves a team like, let's say, the Edmonton Oilers, or a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs, a team that can put goals on the board, and even Vancouver's been doing that this season. You're always going to see 6.5s, but at some point you need to see some sixes. And I'm pretty sure that game in Toronto, between the Leafs and Winnipeg, that first game, the total was at 6. I don't believe it was 6.5 when we did the Puck Time show. So I'm a bit surprised here. You got Samsonov is confirmed for Saturday's game, and it's likely to be Hellebuck. Samsonov, let's give him credit. He shuts out Winnipeg. That game finishes 1-0, and he played fantastic. He gets the shutout, and that was on the heels of a game in which he held the Seattle Kraken to 1 goal in a 3-1 Leafs victory. Now, that one there he only faced, I think, 15 or 16 shots on goal in that game in Seattle. But if you haven't been watching the Leafs the last couple of games after what happened to them in Vancouver, and that embarrassing performance by the Leafs, allowing 6 goals in that one, they've been playing better defensively. And even something as simple as their power play against Winnipeg did not look good, gave up that 2-0. And the number one power play line gave up the 2-0. And what does Sheldon Keefe do? He benches Matthews, Marner, and Nylander, the number one power play unit. He benches them for the next 2 power plays. He didn't bench them for the whole power play, but they weren't the number one unit out there. It was the number 2 unit starting the power play, and it's usually the number 1 unit that starts it and gets the majority of it, a minute and 20 seconds or so, and then the second unit gets 40 seconds. So maybe he's trying to put a stamp on, you guys need to be better defensively, and making his top players accountable, and it worked. They played a good defensive game. The fact that Hellebuck's in goal here, and Lauren Broussard, his numbers are almost mimic Hellebuck's numbers. If you look at these 2 goalies' numbers side by side, they look almost the same. They're like a 1 and 1A, but you always want Hellebuck in goal, especially on home ice. That's Andrew, that plus money seems so attractive, doesn't it, with the Leafs? I'm almost tempted to take them, but at 6.5, I'm going to take the under. I still think that this that 6.5 is too much for this, and it's just a matter of when do we finally trust the Leafs, Andrew? And here's my question to you: when do we finally trust the Leafs to be a defensive team? The Oilers are. They weren't at the beginning of the season, but they made a coaching change, and the Oilers have won 22 of 25 games, I think it is. And a lot of them have stayed under the total because they're playing very good defensive hockey. So I'm leaning the under, but with the one caveat of um, I almost I find it difficult to trust the Leafs and taking unders just because sometimes they fall apart defensively, and when they let in one, they let in three or let in four.
Right.
So I'm still leaning the under, Andrew, but how do you feel?
Well, that's the thing is
Do you
that,
trust them?
they get the shutout, right? Can they do it again? Can they put together 3 good defensive performances in a row? I mean, we saw maybe even 4. As they've looked okay over the last few games. But that's the thing is that what Toronto was able to do the last time these teams met, Carm, is kind of what Winnipeg does every game. That's the thing. I mean, I saw something that said it's now 36 straight games where Winnipeg's given up 3 or fewer goals. So even though they lost that game, they still gave up just 1 goal. Consistency at its finest with this Winnipeg team. I've been a big team totals guy, but I don't want to look at team totals when it comes to this one because Winnipeg doesn't need 4 or 5 goals to win a game because they're not giving up 3 or 4 goals in most games. They can get 2 or 3 goals and win. How often these days in the NHL can you have a team that you bet on score 2 or 3 goals and you're comfortable? Like you want 4, I think is the magic number these days in the NHL. So look, I'm going to give credit, and I'm not coming on here to make fun of the Leafs because I've made some money on them recently, but it's the home and home angle, man. It's the home and home angle. Every single summer in the CFL, Canadian Football League, for those of you not familiar, they do these home and homes all the time. And no matter what happens in the first game, you go back home and it's a whole different result. And I think the difference is that Winnipeg's defense will be there again. But if Toronto gives up the chances that they gave up, there's a reason why Samsonov was given the belt, that thing that the Maple Leafs are doing in the locker room afterwards, that like it looks like a WWE belt with the logo on it.
Yeah.
There's a reason why Samsonov got it again. Matthews gave it back to him. You asked me when we can believe that they're a good defensive team. When I can believe they're a good defensive team is when they have a good defensive game and he doesn't get the belt, right? They can't have him, having his stand on his head for them to play well. I like the revenge angle in this one. And I get what you're saying about the price, Carm.
Yeah.
It's intriguing, right? And I think that's what the books want us to do. The books are looking at us. Hey, look, this team already won 1-0 last week. I can give you plus price on them now, but I think that the series is going to be 1-1 after these two teams meet today here on Saturday. So I'm going to go with Winnipeg on the side, but let's be honest, it correlates with the under. I think that if you win, I win too.
Yeah, and the thing is, Andrew, is and one of the reasons why I would lean the under, and it could turn out to be a client play at the end of the day if it stays at 6.5, is the fact that in order for the Leafs, and especially their core 4, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares. In order for those guys, well, Tavares isn't really scoring right now. He's mired in quite a bit of a slump. But in order for these guys to play the defensive game that they need in order to support their D and their goalie, they got to sacrifice offense. And this is why, as well as they played defensively in that game, they couldn't score until OT, until it was a 3-on-3, which is essentially an offensive skills competition in overtime. 5-on-5, and they had the first, correct me if I'm wrong, they had the first 5 penalties, power plays in that game against Winnipeg and couldn't score. And gave up a 2-on-0 in which Samsonov had to make a save. When they got their 5th penalty or 5th power play, they also took a penalty 40 seconds into it, and then they took another penalty with 30 seconds left in the game, which almost ended up costing them that game. They could have easily lost that game 1-0 in overtime, but they have to sacrifice some offense. This is what Paul Maurice got the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers, when they were the President's Trophy winners a year removed from last year, they were scoring goals. Andrew, they were coming back. You remember they were coming back from 3-0 deficits, 4-0 deficits, and winning games 7-4, 7-5. He got them to change their style and said, "You're not, with the premise of we're never going to get far in the playoffs playing that type of an offensive game," and they didn't that year that they won the President's Trophy, but they the next year removed, which was last year, they make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, and it might have been a different outcome. Sorry, if they didn't have all of the injuries, players playing through those injuries in the finals. But can the Leafs do that? Because we know they're an offensive team. Can they play that defensive game? The coach of Edmonton somehow convinced his team to sacrifice some of their offense for defense, but they're still scoring goals and winning games. Whether the Leafs can do it, we're gonna have to see on Saturday night. But 6.5, I'm taking the under.
They're buying in the defense. I know what you mean. You have to sacrifice some offense to play defensive hockey. When you slipped up there and said different income, I was reading an article yesterday about the different income with the state tax in Florida, talking about how when Matthew Tkachuk, his contract is up, and all these guys out there, Reinhardt in Florida, they don't need, the money that they're getting compared to some of these guys in Canada or other places in North America where the tax is higher. That can be considered in their contract. They're not getting taxed in Florida, which is a really cool thing that I already knew about, but when learning more and more about that with contract negotiations, there's a reason why more and more people are going to Dallas or going to Florida, Tampa Bay, some of these teams, because you don't have to worry about that. The state tax, Carm, you know about that stuff more than I do, but I find it real interesting, the business behind things when recruiting in the free agencies, because when you're playing in Toronto, Nylander's not getting all of that money that he just signed for.
Yeah, but the thing to remember, and guys, when you're watching this, you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section below. But I'm pretty certain across all sports, all mainstream sports in the U.S., and that happens here in Canada too. Let's say any American player playing like Austin Matthews, you know what I mean, playing in Toronto. If his contract is $13.5 million, he is not being our tax rate up here for someone like that is well over 50%. But he's not being taxed at 50% of that money. He's being taxed for the percentage of when he's playing in Canada. When he
Yes.
travels throughout the US, you pay the tax of the state that you're playing in. So he's still going to have to pay when he plays in New York. When he plays in Florida, if there's no state tax, he's not paying any tax on his income that is earned while he's playing in Florida. When you're in New York, it's obviously higher, but in the states in which there is no tax, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I read that with a lot of the NBA players as well too.
Mm.
You're taxed for your income of the state that you're playing in, even as a visiting player. So that's something that comes into it. But that that's not going to get us any winners, Andrew, on Saturday night. So let's switch topics from what they're getting taxed to how we can tax them into getting us some winners.
Well, speaking of the nice tax-free state, we should talk about this Florida Panthers team as they take on the New York Islanders and Mr. Patrick Roy that just lost to the Montreal Canadiens Thursday night. I'm telling you, Carm, my Montreal Canadiens, they're like a box of chocolates, man. You literally never know what they're going to do any given night. They go off to a 3-0 start over the New York Islanders. So the Islanders 1-1-1, I believe. Or maybe it's 1-2 now under the new head coach. Florida Panthers will be on a second half of a back-to-back as they are playing on Friday night against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Home game for the Islanders. What are you seeing so far under the new head coach? Anything that sticks out to you in this one?
No, because I don't think he's made his stamp on the team yet. If And you can't bail on a coach or get on a coach because he's coming in and he's inheriting the problems that existed with the team, the problems that they might have had, whether it's scoring, whether it's defense, whether it's something in the dressing room, and you need to change sort of that culture. It's something that John Tortorella talks about with Philadelphia, changing the culture of that team to make them believe and make other players believe that Philadelphia is a great place to come and play and a team to play for. So he's changing the culture. Patrick Roy is going to have to do that. We'll see whether he can or can't. It's only been 3 games. We're going to have to give that guy some time. Look how long it took Paul Maurice to do it in Florida. And I was on his case every week. You got to get rid of this guy. You got to get rid of this guy. But what do I know? But I'm not really worried about the back-to-back for Florida. And we talked about that on Puck Time. It's going to, with Bobrovsky going on Friday night, it's Stolarz in goal on Saturday, and he's 7-4 with a 212 goals against average, 917 save percentage. The interesting thing here is you look at Florida, and they are in back-to-backs. In the second of back-to-backs, they're 2-0-1. So they picked up 5 of possible 6 points in the second of a back-to-back. The even more interesting one is, of all teams in back-to-back situations, they have, as I'm seeing it on my screen, the lowest goals scored per game in that second game. And you think they would be a little looser in the second game. The average score is 2.33 to 1. So basically 3.33 goals scored in those second games. Now, of course, it's a small sample size, but that basically is telling you that in 3 games, a total of 10 goals have been scored in the back-to-back, in the second of back-to-back games. And you have a good goalie in Stolarz. It's going to be Sorokin in goal for the Islanders. I couldn't see who else would be in goal for them. So I'm going to lean the under, and I'm going to guess that over-under is likely at 5.5. Andrew, I mean, have a quick look at the WagerTalk live lines. It might not be up just because Florida is in action tonight, but only one book has it up, and it's 5.5 over. The VIG is over 25 cents on the 5.5, which is a normal number, having the VIG on the over in the 5.5.
Yeah, I'm with you on the under. I agree with the point you made, Carm, about and I appreciate you saying that about Patrick Roy. How many practices has he had? Like, how many times has he had opportunities to get on the ice with his players, be able to talk about the schemes he wants and talk about certain things he wants to see out of his team? But overall, I think that he wants to see them play like the old New York Islanders, because I think the new New York Islanders, the way they play, it's kind of like you mentioned with Florida. It's not sustainable. Remember I told you that they were up in the top of the rankings for expected goals for, but they were also in the top of the rankings for expected goals allowed. It's like you mentioned about the Leafs. Sometimes in order to get better on defense, you have to sacrifice offense. They got off to a real tough first period start, like I mentioned, against Montreal, giving up 3 goals early on in the game. Ends up being 3-1, 3-3, then 4-3 for Montreal. But those 2 goals that they scored against Montreal were on the 5-minute major power play for them. Look, I like the under as well. I think they're not going to be happy, going to have a bitter taste in their mouths. Florida, as much as they can explode offensively with guys like Reinhart and Verhaeghe playing so well, I do still think, as you mentioned, deep down, their true identity is kind of a hard-nosed defensive team. So, sometimes I believe the back-to-back angle with overs is a little bit overthought. And with the All-Star break coming up, I think that this is going to be a laser-focused game. 2 teams really dialed in, wanting to end the first half of the season on a really good note. And then, of course, Patrick Roy and the team will have time to go over some schemes and some tactics that they want after the All-Star break, when they get a few practices. Some of these teams, Carm, they're not back in action until the 5th or 6th of February. But I think the defense will certainly be an emphasis, and the back-to-back doesn't really bother me. So you've done a good job talking about those back-to-backs on Puck Time. I'm not worried about it.
No, and it's the same here. You look at it, and like I said, Florida plays on Friday night. So this is obviously a second of a back-to-back for them. They won 6 straight games on the road, and you look at them and just look at the scores. And when you're talking about like unders and defense, 3-2 over Tampa, a Tampa team that is right now scoring goals and on a great run, and we're going to talk about them shortly. After that, 4-1 against the Arizona Coyotes, 4-1 against the Vegas Golden Knights in Vegas. The anomaly of these games, the 8-4 game in which they beat the Colorado Avalanche in Colorado 8-4. No one saw that coming. So you kind of got to draw a line through that one, I believe.
Mm.
5-1 in St. Louis and then 4-1 in Nashville. So you look at it, and with the exception of the Colorado game, the 8-4, on this 6-game win streak, in 4 of the games, they kept their opponents to a goal and 2 goals in the other. That's the epitome of
Impressive.
a team that's playing some very good defense. And it wasn't Bobrovsky in all of those games. Stolarz was in net for some of those. So uh, we're not going to see a 6 if when the live lines come out, and the only one right now is there's only one book out. If someone popped up a 6 with like -20 juice on the under, I would be all over that play. Whether it wins or loses remains to be seen, but finding a 6 is going to be hard. But if one pops up on the screen this evening, I'll be taking it.
Well, it's like what Teddy says on Wager Talk today. If you're betting an NFL spread, if you're on the dog, you should be looking for that 3 in the hook. If you're on the favorite, you should be getting that 3. It's sports betting 101. If you guys want the over, you're looking for a 5.5. You want the under, you should definitely be looking for those 6s. Obviously, we're not going to recommend, if you're not comfortable laying the -130 or 25 and you want a better price, I get that. But 5.5, 6, 6.5, it's really important to get that best number. Speaking of getting the best numbers, guys, we hope you appreciate us doing this Saturday show. Please hit the like button. Let our folks know at Wager Talk, the good guys there in the office and everybody at Wager Talk TV. No, we're doing a good job here. Hit the like button, comment below. And if you're interested in all of our favorite plays, our best bets, we have a promo code. And this goes up until Monday night. Cup 150. Cup CUP 150 will take $150 off our full season package. Use it at Carmine's page, wt.buzz/CB. Myself with the same, wt.buzz/AM. And you can save $150 off. And this is for the entire playoffs as well. Future bets, prop bets, side bets, regulation, team total, every single thing we release, guys. That promo code CUP150 will take $150 off a full season NHL pass. We ran a great deal for a 7-day NHL pass. Carmine and I together, it was a buy one, get one. So I figured we would go the exact opposite route this time, Carm, and go the whole distance, get a full season NHL pass. I think it's a great deal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So long term, I think we're both confident, Andrew, that we're going to grind out profits for our clients. And instead of judging on one play, judge us on the second half of the season, which obviously includes the playoffs as well too. So, and you always know where to find us
Yes.
every weekday on Wager Talk TV from 11 to 11:45.
We're there. Good results, bad results, whatever it might be. You guys can see us, and a lot of you guys are tuning in the comments section as well, the live chat. You mentioned not about how you start, but how you finish. But man, this Tampa Bay Lightning team, I think they heard the insults people were giving them. Tampa Bay is not the same team. Tampa Bay doesn't have depth anymore. That was me. Tampa's kind of lost their edge, right? All these storylines about Tampa. What a run they are on right now. They're back at home on Saturday, -155. Devils +130. Total being at 6.5 in this one. This is a matchup with two hungry teams. And the Devils, they want to get going here. No Jack Hughes, no problem. They want to try and keep it going, Carm. But can they do it against a red-hot Tampa Bay Lightning team?
If they can stay out of the penalty box, yes. I think I'm going to play Mick Scrooge to you, Andrew, because you're talking up Tampa Bay and what have you, and I get it. They're on a good run. I think a lot of people expected New Jersey to play a lot better than they did in Carolina their last time out, but Carolina's a very good team. Wins that game 3-2. It was probably a little closer. The final score is a little closer than what the game actually played out in. But I look at Tampa, and they're doing what you're supposed to do. When you play teams you're supposed to beat, you beat them. And you look last time out, Arizona, a team they're supposed to beat, they crush them 6-3. Game prior to that, Philadelphia, a team that is nosediving very quickly, 4 straight losses, and they just can't keep any pucks out of their net. Beat them 6-3. Prior to that, they lose to the Red Wings in Detroit. But you look at them, 3-1 against the Sabres, 7-3 against the Wild, 5-1 against the Ducks, 3-2 against the Lightning. Against the Kings. So I'm reading off a couple of games that are a couple of teams that I think most teams should be able to beat, especially when you're playing them at home. They did play against the Devils back on the 11th of January, beat them 4-3 in overtime. Devils played well in that game. And off a subpar performance last time out against the Carolina Hurricanes, I somehow feel that New Jersey is going to get the win here. Um, I just don't have the data to back it up. It's just that this New Jersey
It's a
team
gut feel. It's a
can
gut
play.
pick. It's all
Yeah,
right. It's a gut
they
pick.
can play when they need to. Listen, that game, they could have rolled over and played dead at home against the Vegas Golden Knights, and they came back and they win that game 6-5, win it in OT. Those are the kind of games that they need to start stringing together consistently, because we used that phrase last year, which they're consistently inconsistent. If you
Yeah.
remember that phrase, we used it. And that is the New Jersey Devils this year. They'll win a game and they look like they're back. And then they lose to the Dallas Stars 6-2 at home. And you're like, what did you guys just do? Then they win a game and they lose to the Montreal Canadiens. And you're like, oh, this team is so frustrating. And from a bankroll point of view, Andrew, when that happens, you're just like, and I see it in our live chat sometimes. The Devils are trash or Calgary's
Yeah.
trash,
Yeah.
right? Because it's the moment that we think it's just that one moment in time in which we made a bet on them. They did not win for us, and that's it. We're done. They're banned, never to be played again. And you can't take that approach. You have to be like a goldfish. And what do I mean by that? It's a Ted Lasso quote. Goldfish have no memory. They forget. So is you have to be a goldfish. Don't even think about it. Let it go. Hopefully learn your lesson and just get right back at it. Be a goldfish. That's a new PuckTime um motto
Motto.
for some
I like it.
t-shirts.
I
We're
like
gonna
it.
have
Be a
the puck
goldfish.
time here and then be a goldfish. I think I'm gonna get those shirts made up and we should give some away.
I'm
I'm gonna get
interested.
my graphics guy ready on that. Be a goldfish. All right.
I'd wear it. Look, no, I think that's a really good point. But you know what, Carm? It's way harder than you make it sound to be a goldfish. It's because a team can get on your nerves. Like sometimes I find that like if I take a few days off in the NHL and then you go back at it, you feel so fresh, right? It's so easy to hold grudges on a team. And I've told you, I've held grudges on player props. I've bet on guys to get over 0.5 points 3 straight times. The second I stop betting on them, they go on a streak of 6 games in a row where they get a point, right? And it's so hard to not hold the grudge. But looking at this matchup, you talked about inconsistency. 2 games go under for the Devils, the next 2 go over. 2 games go under for them, the next 2 go over. You had some great points there about Tampa Bay and their games. The fact that they have been putting up goals against teams they should be putting up goals against. A lot of coaches and a lot of teams are saying they're relying heavily on their power play. Well, I saw a stretch of a couple games in a row 0 for 3, 0 for 3, 1 for 3. Tampa's not just getting special team scoring now. They're also getting 5-on-5 scoring, which is extremely dangerous. I did learn a lesson the other day, and it's stop betting unders in Tampa Bay games for the time being. When I had the under in the Arizona, it should have been just Arizona team total under, because, maybe Arizona got shut down. Tampa Bay scored. I'm going to rock with the over in this one. Carolina shut down the Devils. I don't think the Devils will get shut down the same way. Just like yourself thinking they could be a live dog, I think the over's in play. I think these teams could trade goals even without Jack Hughes. Both teams have dangerous power plays. I think we could see some of these top players, including Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, step up to the plate, and they're going to have a bad taste in their mouth after that game. And looking at that game they played against Vegas, even though they won 6-5, Carm, that was a bad game. I mean, it was not. That was a sloppy defensive effort, and I don't really see it getting better anytime soon. You need to see it a bunch of times in a row. 6 goals given up against Dallas, 5 goals given up against Vegas, and then, of course, giving up a 3-piece there to the Hurricanes. So for me, I will rock with the over in this game, and I'd recommend getting in on it while you can. If you can find some minus 120s, I would jump in on that one to the over Devils and Lightning. And that's all I've got for the 3 games here, Carm. Anything else you want to mention?
Yeah. I wanted to quickly look up, and it's a good thing that you kind of went on there for a second. But that game in which the New Jersey Devils lose 4-3 in overtime to Tampa Bay. Here are the stats from that game, Andrew. New Jersey outshot them 30-20 in that game. I just want to make sure we are correct in this one, but I'm just going to read these off, and I'm just going to quickly verify. So New Jersey outshot them 30-20 in that game. New Jersey also had they were even in high danger chances, so at 9 apiece. The analytic numbers as far as expected goals for New Jersey, 2.62 goals to 2.13. So they held 2 of the 3 sort of important analytic numbers in that game, but were on the wrong end of a 4-3 game. Sometimes you can, from a numbers point of view, be the best team on the ice, but you end up losing the game. So they gave up a shorthanded goal in near the end of the first period by I can't even pronounce his name, Glendon. Uh,
I get what you're saying, though.
I don't know how
And
they lose the
the
game.
larger the scale you have, Carm, the better off for those statistics to work out in your favor, because one game is one event. But it's the larger of a scale you have with those same statistics, you would pick that team to win again, right? So you're getting plus money and a good price there. They're battling again. I like it.
And going to like a site like I just did right now, guys, which was Natural Stat Trick. Go to a site and you can grab a team, select the team that they played against. In the drop down, change it to the situation to all situations instead of 5-on-5, and they'll tell you, and it'll give you the analytics of that game. You can have a look at it and get an idea of it. It's something that I used on Thursday's free play to talk about taking the under in the Detroit Philadelphia game, because the analytic numbers of their 2 games didn't match up with the final scores. There was a 1-0 game in which the final analytics were uh, just above 5, which is still staying under that 6.5. But they underperformed on the ice, only scoring a goal. Then there was a 7-6 game, which was 13 goals, and it was nowhere close to being what the final analytics of that game were, which was about 6.5, which fell on the total. So sort of figuring that it's going to finish the third game is going to be somewhere in the middle. It's a guesstimate at best, but it's one that I'm basing on numbers, and sometimes they will help. Sometimes numbers are your friends. So I don't want to go on and on about this, Andrew, but at least give yourself a chance by looking at teams' analytics and not looking at just the standings and saying, okay, this team is trash. I'm not going to bet them. And then at the end of the night, you're upset because they beat the team that you bet on, who are
Yeah.
now
Yeah, definitely.
the new
Well,
trash.
look, Carm,
Be
I'd like to be able to say I've had a good start to my seasons in the NHL lately, but the fact is I've always gotten better as the season has gone on. Realistically, I should probably be starting in December every year because I learn from what I'm seeing from these teams. You can only do so much off-season research, and I follow it very closely, but being adaptable, being able to look at what you're seeing, and that's kind of what you're talking about there with the numbers and the statistics, is I think there's a pretty obvious reason for why February and March have been my best months in the NHL the last 3 years. And it's because those are the times where you have all the data, all the numbers that you need. It's post All-Star break. There's no question marks, right? You want to be be a goldfish, but at the same time, you want to absorb.
Yeah.
You want to be a sponge too. That's going to be mine. You could be a goldfish. I'm going to be a sponge. I'm going to absorb all the information. So I'm looking forward to it, man. And it's going to be more fun to start betting these, once we go post All-Star break.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look this up to make sure I'm actually stating the right thing. But I believe that they tell you never to overfeed a goldfish, because if you just give it a bunch of food, it'll continue to eat and it'll literally blow up. Because goldfish have no memory. They're like, did I eat? No, I didn't. Or there's more food, so they just continue to eat. It's kind of like how I feel right now. We're almost done this video. I'm going to eat because I'm a goldfish. I don't remember whether I had a meal about an hour ago, but I'm kind of hungry right now.
I'm going to the gym so I don't blow up. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to use that promo code CUP150 to take $150 off our NHL full season pass. It's a great deal. It's only going to be available for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So if you guys want our plays, pretty much that's going to be around the same price our entire playoff pack will be, but you're going to get the entire full season. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Best of luck this weekend. We'll see you on Monday right here on WagerTalk TV.